two.
Get up and go, it's today you know on KSCO Radio.
Well, good morning, folks. Yeah, it's MZ, and welcome to the Saturday Special, live and direct from World Headquarters, KSCO SF World Headquarters. That's our project we're working on. We don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but we're sure going to give it the college try. So, but stay with us for the next 2 hours for this program, okay?
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
Okay, yeah, good. This is excellent. That's the controversy sound, huh? The controversy sounder. Yeah. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about today is very controversial. By the way, can you see me okay?
Yeah, and we are streaming live on YouTube at KSCO Global.
I didn't have time to brush my hair.
Neither did I.
I jumped out of the shower and blow dried it, and then brushed my yellow teeth so that they... Yellow is my favorite color, and I've talked about that before. Why is it people don't like yellow teeth? But it's a bright, cheerful color otherwise. Anyhow, I have this toothpaste that turns my normally yellow teeth into white teeth.
Looking good, boss.
All right, good. All right, yeah, do that. That's good. Yeah, better. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I noticed, yeah. We have Bon on.
Now it's official.
Thank you. I want to share a personal story. I had to go get a blood test this week.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's not so terrible. I mean, I've been feeling sort of, very tired, and so you know me. I like to, or maybe you don't know me. I like to deal with. I want to rule out anything sinister, So I went for this blood test here, and I'm in San Francisco, the site of World Headquarters here, and I decided you get a lot of walking done here if you walk up and down the hills in the city, right? So I was walking up this hill by myself, and something unexpected happened. How do I describe it? Not crudely. I broke wind, totally unexpectedly. And I figured, oh, well, okay, nobody knows but me. But that wasn't true. There was someone walking directly behind me. And I turned around, and there he was. And you could tell that no one within, if they were walking within like 200 or 300 yards, would not have heard the breaking of the wind sound. And he must have been like 3 or 4 feet behind me.
Shall we say directly downwind?
Yeah, exactly. And so I was mortified. I turned beet red, and I don't usually get embarrassed about those kinds of things. I think farts are funny. I think farts are about the funniest thing. One of the funniest things about life is farts. The funny sound and the funny smell and the people's funny reactions to them, right? But I turned beet red when I realized that I was not alone, far from it. There was only one person, but that person, as you say, was very close downwind. And so I felt like I had to apologize. And the guy was cracking up. He thought it was real funny, and so it's good that he had a good sense of humor about it. I said, gee, I sure would hate to be in your shoes being so close to me downwind, because I know it can be pretty vile. And he said, don't worry about it. It happens to the best of us.
Wow.
It got me thinking, I didn't used to do that when I was younger. I'm 65 years old now, and it made me think of my mother, who used to, she probably, she had a great sense of humor. So depending upon her mood, she probably wouldn't mind my divulging that about her. And it's well known that older people, the older they get, the less control they have down there. So she would get out of the car when I was taking her somewhere, and there would be this symphony, and she would look at me and just start cracking up, thinking it was really, really funny. Now, and my father
runs in the family, obviously.
Well, my father was something else. My God, he had his optometry practice down on the Pacific Garden Mall, and he didn't even have a secretary. And a lot of time he was working in the lab. He did his own lens grinding. It was amazing. I mean, he was he was just unbelievably talented man, and a fun person. And I'm sure there are people listening today who were my dad's patients and remember that he was quite a character himself. But he would cut loose of these massive, funny sounding, flatulations, thinking that there was no one in because you could hear the door slam. But some people, some people would open the door to his optometry office and close it very, softly, so that if he was back in the lab and the lens grinding machine was on, he wouldn't know that there were, that there was one or more people in the patients in the waiting room. So more than once he would tell us these stories about him cutting loose of really, really loud, and the people up front would roar so loudly with laughter that it would drown out the sound of the lens grinding machine, and he would get embarrassed and realize, oh my God, he wasn't alone after all. Anyhow, that's what happened to me this week, and I just thought I would share it because we once did a Saturday special, I think it was in 1998 or 1999, all about farts. And do you think farts are funny? Some people don't. Some people are probably shocked and horrified that I'm talking about it now. But I'm going to invite people to share their fart stories because we could use some belly laughs. I personally find fart stories hilarious. What about you, Jason Strube?
You would love, there's a guy named Jack Vale. He's been putting out a lot of videos recently that have a very a common theme, and the theme is he will go up to strangers while his wife or somebody's filming him secretly, and he will fart on strangers intentionally, and he'll do the full-on leg lift and everything, and just fart right on them at point-blank range, whether in the store.
Well, see, now that's disrespectful. I mean, I could understand him someone getting upset and punching him in the face for that.
People do get upset. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, I would never do that. This is innocent stuff, where you think you're alone and you're not. That's what I think is really hilarious. So I'm going to invite people, at least for the first hour. We're going to have a really serious subject for the second hour. So, and maybe no one thinks this is funny anyhow, but I think it's hilarious. And, I don't laugh nearly enough, and it would be doing me a personal favor if some of you in the listening audience would call 479-1080, that's in area 831, and relate a fart story that would bring a laugh to my otherwise too serious life. And I would really appreciate it. And I think there are plenty of people in the audience who would appreciate that too. And for those who don't, who are offended, I think they'll crack a smile in spite of themselves. I really do. I can't think of too many other ways to smile and get a laugh than talking about farts. I mean, I just think it just tickles me. I'm sorry, it just does. So, all right, so much for that. We have a caller who's going to give us an update. He's more than a caller. He's a special friend of mine. And he's Bob McDermott from Tahoe, soon to be from the Bay Area here. And Bob had 2 or 3 weeks ago one of the highest was a part of one of the highest quality discussions that we've ever had on the Saturday Special, and probably the whole radio station. We got Bob with Georgia. And now my telephones are ringing. Who's calling me? Who in the world is calling me when I'm live on the radio? Anyhow. Oh, it's Costco Pharmacy, probably to tell me that my prescription is ready. But I'm going to decline that, and it killed the video at the same time. Did it, Jason?
No, we're good.
Oh, you're still getting video? Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to Bob. Bob and Georgia, who are political opposites, had a really fine civil discussion that is going worldwide on Monday on Talkers. Talkers magazine is that is owned by my friend Michael Harrison. Is the Bible of the talk radio industry, and I'm a longtime supporter of Talkers, and KSCO is, and ZBS Radio is, and they're a longtime supporter of us. We're mutual supporters of each other, and Michael has long asked me to to make available some special moments on KSCO, and so I'm sure there are people in the audience who might have been listening to that discussion between Bob and Georgia. And Bob was on his way just a few days after that discussion to be operated on, to have a very, very serious life-altering operation. And he had that operation, and he's on with us now. Bob, welcome back to KSCO, and we hope you will be here a long time.
I hope so too. I look forward to working with you on that KSCO SF. I really do look forward to that, MZ.
So tell us, give us an update on your situation here, okay?
Well, I'm sitting here up at our little place up at Tahoe. Tiffany just walked in the door from getting some supplies, and I'm tied into my IV bag. Nothing more fun than watching the drip, drip, drip. It looks like the operation was successful, and one of the reasons I called was I wanted to thank your listeners for the support and good wishes that we received before going into that operation. I'll be honest, it scared the hell out of me.
Tell people what the operation was, okay? Again, please.
I had bladder cancer. I say had because the bladder that had the cancer is no longer in, so I'm assuming it's out playing canasta doing something else because it's not in me anymore. So what they did was use 6 feet of the small intestine, build a brand new bladder, and put it in me using a robotic device called the Da Vinci. It's a surgical assist robot. The operation was performed by an American of East Indian descent, Dr. Istabar Gill, who, when he came in the last night I was there, I was getting ready to be discharged. He walked in and I said, "Sir, you have a new name now." And he goes, "What?" I said, "Leonard McCoy."
Dr. McCoy from Star Trek.
Of course. Yeah. And he started laughing, and I said, "I'm sending you a sign. It'll say Starfleet Medical."
That's great.
But it was, I was there. The operation was on the 21st, and I got out. I was home last Friday.
Wow, that's great.
So,
and you went to where that was the best, obviously, and that's what you do when something like that, when you're facing something like that. So.
We had received referrals, Michael, from all over the world. That this guy was the very best. Now, I got a couple of comments about UC Med, if you don't mind. Staff was superb. There is a Filipino mafia, I swear to God. The nurses were mostly Filipino, extremely talented. The whole culture was an extraordinarily high level of care. Although I'll have to say that every possible bad rumor you ever heard about hospital food rings true like Liberty Bell at that hospital. Oh, God. If you got a second for a quick story.
Sure.
I couldn't eat anything. I just could drink water, and that was it for 4 days. and you start having dreams about strawberries and pudding and just all kinds of things that you got to have this, you got to have that. Finally, one of the nurses took pity on me and got me, procured for me this half of this, probably the world's worst popsicle. It probably had enough chemistry in it that you could use it to pass, a chemistry seminar, in Houston somewhere, because it was all artificial. It was a lemon, I think, but after 4 days, the taste of that was just delectable. It was amazing how that, because you haven't had anything for 4 days except water. That's it. And you taste that, and it was just amazing. It was just amazing.
Here's a question for you, and I've been meaning to ask you this. Why did they use the small intestine to fashion the new bladder instead of the large intestine, which has much greater capacity than a small intestine? Why is that?
I think it had to do, I'd have to check for you, but I think it had to do with how much mucus is generated by the large intestine versus the small. Now, this is going to be kind of gross, so I'll keep it as gentle as I can. Either intestine creates almost like a lubricating mucus, okay, that allows solids to pass, if you'll pardon my, And one of the exercises I've been having to do since the day I woke up was you have to flush yourself out externally. It's called irrigation. And you want to wash out this mucus over and over and over again. It's my understanding that the small intestine produces less and it's a little bit easier to handle.
Right.
So that this bag of skin, essentially they created, learns to be a bladder.
And it'll stretch?
Yes. Yes, there are exercises. Yes.
Yeah, because that would be a nice feature for a bladder to be able to stretch. However, I know some people who have had their bladders stretched so much that it sort of, didn't go back, and that, it sort of got stretched. It's like when you break elastic, or something, and it doesn't have the elasticity anymore. I don't know. We probably shouldn't talk about that, but people say we shouldn't talk about farts either. And I've already gotten a tremendously delightful email from a person who does not want me to use his or her name because people in the audience will know immediately who she is. Who he is. She is.
Who he is.
Who they are. Okay. So.
One quick thing.
Yes.
You talk about humor and talk about funny.
We need it. Lord knows we need humor in these days of misery. And angst,
I can tell you.
And stress and resentment.
Well, there was a young woman. She was training to be a nurse, and I think her name was Nicola. She was third generation Mexican American, absolutely stunningly beautiful and smart as a whip. Okay, so I'm sitting there, and she comes in for the morning check. She comes in with two doctors, and there's another nurse, and they're discussing my condition and such. Mm-hmm. And I am literally falling apart because I'm leaking all over. I'll leave it to the imagination as to what.
I can imagine that. You don't need to describe it any more than that, because I see a vivid picture right now in my mind's eye.
Oh yeah. So I'm ready just to collapse. My dignity is gone. Okay. So as you know, MZ, I like to sing. Okay. And I start off with an old Frank Sinatra song. I'll do a bar. South of the border, down Mexico way. And she starts to crack up. And then everybody starts to crack up. And the whole room starts to crack up because I was trying to cover my embarrassment. You had to be there. But honest to God, it was hilarious.
I like stories like that. Because they good. Okay, now you need to, I think that talk show hosts who want to be effective need to be entertaining, and therein lies the success of Rush Limbaugh and Michael Savage. They're the two hosts who come to mind. Two very very successful talk show hosts who come to mind because they're very bright and they're very passionate and they're very entertaining, and is having a keen, strong, projecting sense of humor is a major part of being entertaining in my book. And
well, Michael, like you said,
yeah.
I don't want our show, if we do one, to be NPR.
NPR is so high quality, but it's so humorless.
Dull.
Largely, now some people think that some of the NPR hosts have a sense of humor. But and they've been phenomenally successful.
No, it's true.
Anyhow, so we need, and I think they've been successful because of the quality of their content, but certainly not because of the entertainment value. If you can have both components, isn't that the best of all worlds? That's what I think, anyhow.
I agree.
Now, let's see. I want to start having some fun here. There are so many restaurants in the city that if I lived to be 200, I wouldn't even scratch the surface if I went to 2 restaurants a day. And I want to discover, but I got to tell you, I discovered one not too long ago. It's where they are currently holding the Broadcast Legends meeting that they hold quarterly. And the Broadcast Legends group is shrinking. Every 3 months they have more of what we call silent mics. They're people who were alive at the last meeting and they're dead now 3 months later. But I discovered the Basque Cultural Center in South San Francisco, and their food is out of this world good, and their salad dressing is the best salad dressing. I mean, and I asked them. I said, when I was there last with my brother, is there any chance I could buy some of your salad dressing? Oh, we'll sell it for $10. I said, great. If they would have said $100, I would have done it. But what they gave me a big old hanging. It must have been a quart or more of this salad dressing. In a what do you call that? A styrofoam container, which
right.
I immediately transferred into a glass, thing when I got it home. And I'm still finishing that from 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it's just wonderful. And all you need to do is put that mouth-watering lemony dressing on butter lettuce and nothing else. Out of this world delicious. I mean, I am starting to drool all over the microphone. And is your radio wet, Bob? Because my microphone is just drenched. And I'm wondering if the people out in the audience are noticing some moisture on their radios, because I am drooling so much at the thought of.
Michael, it was good for me. Was it good for you?
Yeah. Okay. So anyhow, here is a. I will not. Rest assured that the subject matter is farts. I'm not going to give the writer's identity. Rest assured, I will be sharing the podcast with my family later. First of all, please do not identify me. Those who know the family will recognize, and those who don't know that, well, they don't want to, quote, air the family laundry, unquote, too publicly. I'm guessing you have occasionally heard Mother's Day referred to as Martyr's Day. In our house, the companion holiday is Farter's Day. My husband is the champion. It is not uncommon to hear that telltale rumbling from the other room. Sometimes it is very scary sounding, like there is much more than air being released. We have a few fun phrases for those farts that are SPD, silent but deadly. Excuse me, I have befouled the air, or sorry, I just made stinky air. Of course, it can occasionally be blamed on the dog. Hey, sometimes it is the dog. at least in years gone by, if I was accompanied by a child, obviously in diapers, I could smile apologetically while glancing at the poor innocent child who had no idea she was being blamed for the stench. If I think of any other funny stories, I will share. In the meantime, have a wonderful day. Well, okay, an email is better than, nothing, but we do want some we do want some participation. Now,
Michael?
What? Yeah.
Real quick, we grade them by intensity. Around here, there's if it's a minor issue, it's a calliope. If it's a biggie, it's Steamboat Willie.
Right. Okay.
So
okay.
I just for a second here want to read you something out of UrbanDictionary.com, which is a website that gives definitions for different phrases. The phrase is crop dusting. And one example or one definition given is passing gas in a stealth manner, usually while walking through a crowd or group so that someone else gets blamed for the stench, or at the very least, people besides the assailant must suffer it. And the example given is, I quickly went out the door to avoid blame after crop dusting the room.
Wow.
Oh,
That's
God.
pretty good. Jeannie
That's good.
Quaglia emails, unbelievable. Kay's Whirling was such a lady. It is unbelievable that MZ is her son. Please show him the button to push while he clears his phlegm due to his sad diet, while also sharing his disgusting flatulent stories. I'm only listening in anticipation of Georgia's input. Wait a minute. Now, I haven't heard Georgia talk about, flatulence and stuff like that. But she does tell some pretty racy, dirty jokes. She really, really does. I mean, you've heard them, haven't you, Bob?
I've heard a couple.
Okay, good. Well, anyhow, so, yeah, thank you, Jeannie, for weighing in. There's more. There's more from the first one. A really big one registers on the Richter scale. That's in quotes. Okay. All right, no phone calls. So I guess
We do have a call.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, we have several phone. We have another one coming in. All right, Eileen wants to talk about flatulence. Thank you, Eileen. I'm happy someone wants to talk about flatulence because I really appreciate it.
Good morning, MZ.
Hi.
In speaking of passing bad air, my husband, I would tell him, honey, it's just air. And he would say, yeah, air, ERROR.
Right. But it is more than air. There's a lot of methane in there, and I think there's a whole bunch of other components as well. But anyhow, do you think people who don't think farts are funny are humorless?
I absolutely.
So do I.
Absolutely.
So
Yes,
do I.
absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in and sharing.
You gotta hear
Eileen.
this.
Rory, what do you think? Do you think people who are offended by farts are humorless?
Yes.
So
yes.
do I.
It's one of life's little funnies that you don't have to pay money for along the way. So I'm going to tell a story on myself.
Do you think Jeannie's email her unbelievable email that I just read?
She's a little uptight.
Do you think that maybe she was just playing with it? Maybe she was just playing with us.
Oh, I don't.
Especially if she's waiting to hear from Georgia. Georgia always frequently says outrageous things.
I have to say about Georgia, man, she takes it right up to the edge. It might not be about flatulence, but she does do it. So anyway, I'll tell you my quick story. I was, 18, 19, and my good friend Dave Corbett, God rest his soul, he's not with us anymore. But anyway, I was at the house and I was changing them. We had Boston Terriers, okay, and they're notorious gas bags. And I was over there getting the dogs food or something, and he came. There's two dogs' beds side by side in the kitchen, and he bent down to go see one of the dogs right when I did my business and moved away with the dog food bowl.
Yeah.
And he went, and he grabbed his face. He stood up, He's like, oh, and he ran out the door. He threw up. It was that bad. I didn't realize it was that bad. He blamed it on the dog. So I'm like, oh,
I've heard that, and I've heard that cats are the worst.
yeah, and
I
did blame it on the
their
dog,
feces is absolutely the worst. It's
well, that's why they bury it. That's why they bury it.
because they can't even stand it
Yeah,
themselves.
it's like we just gotta go.
Okay.
So anyway, poor Dave.
Now that makes sense. That makes a lot of
he blamed
sense.
the dog, and then he said, Rory, he said we ought to bottle that and use it on the Russians, is what he said. But anyway, so in my exuberant youth, I let it slip. So anyhow.
Well,
I
thank
thought
you
you'd
for
appreciate
sharing.
that.
I do.
And by the way, is your friend Bob still there?
He is. I think. Bob, are you there?
Yeah, Bob.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
I'm glad you made it through your surgery, and I just want to say that's at the grace from God. He's given you more time on this earth, so use it wisely.
I'll do my very best. Thank you for that. I'll do my very best to harass and entertain.
Yeah, and then, we were praying for you. There were people, I remember people say, hey, I'm going to pray for you, and just, we don't know how much time we'll have, but I know God gives us grace every day to be alive and feel the sunshine and bless people. So, anyway.
Okay. Hey,
thank you,
Rory, for calling.
That.
Here's Rick in Oakdale. Rick, you're on with MZ and Bob.
Okay, I'll get speakerphone. There we go. Hey, Bob, what about if you're going to put it together on the operating table and flatulence? Did you ever fear that while you were on the?
I'll be honest with you. I was so far out of it during that period. No.
You didn't think about it?
No. I can tell you when. I can tell you. Oh, you'll love this. It has nothing to do with flatulence, but it's just as scary. I'm just waking up, right, after the procedure from hell, right, and it's midnight. I went under the knife about 1:30, something like that in the afternoon. It was like 10 to 12. I could see this big clock in front of me. First time I woke up, and I wasn't sure when I went under it. They said there was a 50-50 shot that I would have a stoma and an external bag, or a 50-50 shot that they would build me a new bladder, depending on how far the cancer had progressed. Okay? So imagine this. You're waking up, and you're very gently, you're moving your right hand, checking for the stoma, the bag. And you know where it was supposed to, because you know where it's supposed to be, because the nurse has marked you, and it's covered with a special little tape. You can't seal that tape. You know where it was relationship to your belly button, and you're sitting there going, okay, and then you think, oh, I feel this catheter. Okay, well, the catheter is going, okay, that means probably an internal bag. So you're sitting there kind of going, well, that's cool. And then what you hear in the background is code red, fire alarm, first floor, immediate response required, seal all doors. And you can't move, MZ. You're done, right? And you're sitting there going, I survived this, and I'm going to die from smoke inhalation. They're not going to be able to get us the hell out of here.
Oh, Lord.
Well, that didn't
right on, Bob.
Because you're talking with us.
I have a quick story, MZ, that's similar to that. I got infected and came on a plane like you do when you go to Hawaii and you get a bite from an insect or whatever, and it spreads. It's cellulitis. It's that skin infection. So I land in San Jose with 107 temperature.
Whoa.
They rushed me down to Dominican and put me on the emergency table and did a bunch of tests and everything. And then Dr. Montoya, 40-year-old blonde woman, walks into the emergency room, and she says, I got good news and bad news. And I said, what's that, Doc? I'm not feeling too good. Why don't you give me the good news now? She goes, well, I'm going to save your life. I said, that's great. There couldn't be any bad news. She says, yeah, but I'm going to have to stick my finger up your butt to do it.
Well, you know what?
And
No
my
one
wife-
likes.
my
I don't
wife-
think anyone likes that, but it's not that terrible. I mean, because you're checking for prostate cancer, for God's sakes. I mean,
no, she's taken my temperature. That's the best way to take a temperature.
Oh, a rectal thermometer. I see. Yeah,
Right.
a friend of mine and I went to go to the electronic
She says
shows.
no. She said no, there's no thermometer, and it's a touchy feely thing. My temperature against your temperature. So I looked at her, and then I looked at my wife. She's sitting there, and my wife gives me this scowl. And I told her, I said, "Okay, Doc, no problem, but I'll try not to act like I'm enjoying it." And she she busted up and asked my wife if I ever lost my sense of humor, and I said no, never.
Clearly.
Even under
right.
Absolutely. It's just like the guy that was grinning at all the Persians in the movie 300, and they're going to go to battle, and the guy goes, "What are you grinning at?" That's the way we got to be. We got to have that sense of humor daily.
Well, I'll tell you, I used to go to Hong Kong and Taiwan and Japan and Korea. I did this for a couple of years to see what they would hold their national electronic shows, within a 2-week period of each other. So you could hit them all, in one trip, and see what's coming down the pike, for America later on. So this was like in the early 80s or something that I did this. And digital thermometers made their appearance for the first time back then. And I was so happy to buy my own digital thermometer that on the plane coming back, I sort of embarrassed my friend that I went with, because I kept going. I kept saying, "This is my new digital rectal thermometer," and I kept saying it. Like I use every opportunity to talk about our app developer in India, whose name is Nishit, and I love to say that because it's fun to say Nishit, and it's his real name, So people say, "You're not supposed to say that on the radio," and I say, "Well, yeah, but it's his name, so I'm not going to give him a different name."
MZ, this is my way of breaking the ice with flatulence when it happens, and it makes everybody laugh pretty much. I just wave my hand and I go, "Wow, it's not the smell so bad, it's the way it burns my eyes." So that's my flatulence joke. Okay, talk to you later.
That's pretty good. I had Uncle Vic, who was Kay's older brother, who had an amazing talent that nobody, before or then or since had that I know of. Anyhow, Uncle Vic could fart at will, or at anybody else that he felt like, on command, on demand, right? I mean, who can do that? I'd love to be able to do that, but I can't. It comes when it comes, right? The other thing is I had surgery. I had serious surgery where I was afraid that I might wake up with a stoma like you were afraid. I didn't. I have this enormous scar on my abdomen because they weren't using, these little minimally invasive techniques that they use these days. Back then in December of 1992, I had diverticulitis, and I had 13 inches of my colon snipped out, and then I was reconnected. And I was lucky to be reconnected without even having a temporary bag. But I was convinced that I had selected the right surgeon because he told me that he had had the same operation, exact same operation himself, except 6 months earlier. And obviously he didn't operate on himself. He had another fine, surgeon operate on him. But he told me the story that his diverticulitis was way more advanced than mine, because it had actually the colon had actually fused with his bladder, and he was farting through his penis.
What?
Farting through his penis. And when and I looked at him, I said, "You're joking." He said, No, think about it. It happens a lot. And I'm sure there are people listening to this program who will corroborate that story. He was not kidding. The surgeon has a great sense of humor. When he snipped out my colon, I had my brother, who is a doctor, do a video. And I have this video. I could put it up on YouTube, and I think it would revolt people, but the surgeon had a great sense of humor, and when he snipped it out, he sees him taking it out, and he sticks it on something. He says, "Here, take it up to the cafeteria." He says that, and I'm out cold, on the table, But anyhow, I woke up worried that I might have a bag, temporary or permanent, but I lucked out and didn't. Anyhow, back to the phone lines. We have, Duffy on the Coast Road. Duffy, hi, Duffy.
What's going on, Zorling?
You have a story for us.
I do. So, my own personal, you know what? I had, when I went and got an endoscopy, they said because I couldn't figure out why I was gassing all the time. What I had actually was gastritis, and it was causing all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the funny story is my dad was a printer, and he thought that his big invention in life was going to be these fart cards. And so what they were was these little cards he printed up. When people would pass gas, you would pull up one of these funny little cards, and it would give you an explanation of, why that is. But you talked about people that get so offended by these things, and it just was a way to bring a little bit of humor to the whole experience, so.
I'm hoping that before the hour is out, because we are going to get off this subject and get onto a much more serious subject for next hour. But I'm hoping that before the hour is out, someone who is offended by farts and does not think they're funny will call, and I will treat them with dignity and respect, I promise. I will not make fun of them. I will not call them humorless. Well, yeah, what, Bob?
I'd like to make a quick comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One of the things, I don't know if it happened to you when you had your surgery, one of the things that happened with me is that I'm taking a lot longer and harder look at supplements, diet, all the rest of it. The things, I used to eat reasonably well, but that's all going to change because of this, because it really does make you aware of your mortality. And it really increases the desire to take care of yourself, because you realize that there is a brick wall, and you're going to eventually hit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's good. It's always good for that to happen, regardless of how it happens. Duffy, thanks for sharing the story. Here's Dave and Salinas. Dave.
Hey, MC.
Hi, Dave.
Good morning. Hey, my kid, he was about 8 years old. He's 30 now. And we looked up in the dictionary of the definition of a fart. And I couldn't get that kid to stop laughing. And it was written down.
I looked that up once, and I thought it was really funny. Let me tell you mine, okay, and tell me if it's the same one. A sudden and intense gust of wind from the lower extremity of the body.
Well, it wasn't that long. It just said an explosion between the legs.
I like that one better. Way better.
Yes.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate your call to 479-1080. Let's check the emails here. Oh, we have several emails. Fart epitaph from Frank. My dad used to drive Highway 49 and stop at the abandoned boot hills to read the tombstones. His favorite summed up a man's life with, quote, he held his wind. Thank you, Frank, from Felton. Let's see. Just to prove that farts are humor fodder, there's this video, and there are plenty more. A friend sent it to me via email years ago. I read it on a Saturday night, and the next day at church, someone's cell phone rang, and I could hardly control my laughter. I engaged in what my kids refer to as silent laughing, which could be mistaken for crying from behind. Who could tell? And anyhow, there's a toot tone. Gee, should I play it? Nah, there's no time. I mean, we have to deal. We have to. There's 2 or 3 other phone calls here. So let's go to Willie from Watsonville, who has a fart storty. What's a fart storty?
Yes. Hey, great show. Fun time. I love it. I was in New York City in Radio City Hall and kind of settled back, and all of a sudden I felt the urge, and so I released it quietly, but it was deadly. And I'm telling you.
So people didn't hear it, but they knew it right away.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, I stand up like, who did that? I'm just, because it was rotten eggs. Is that a good one?
Yeah.
So anyway, I got a kick out of it. I didn't intend it. It snuck up on me, but other people realized someone did. I'm the guilty party. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. You know, that reminds me a little bit about Mrs. Hall, my third grade teacher who hated me so much that she put me in the fourth grade just to get me out of her class. She used to say, I remember once or twice she would look up at the class and say, with a very angry face, and say, "Who's letting off smells?" She was very upset. Who is letting off smells? You be honest and say who. No one would admit it. That would be crazy, But who's letting off smells? All right, Chad in Capitola. Thank you, Willie. Chad in Capitola has a fart story. Go ahead, Chad.
Hey, I'm listening to the show. It's super funny. They use different terms which are hilarious. Crop dusting, all that. I haven't heard those in a while, but when I was a teenager, you can be a little mischievous, and my father would save money, and being kind of yokels from Santa Cruz, we went up to San Francisco for a really, fancy dinners. Brings back great memories. My father's passed now, and he had saved all this money. We went to the Fairmont, which back then, I guess in the day, and I don't know if still today, it was very, very
I was
fancy
literally
restaurant.
there 2 days ago. I was walking around in the Fairmont
awesome.
like the good old days. It's an amazing
yeah,
place.
And it's just elegant and so on. And my mom, she's all proud, and she has all of her sons dressed up. Of course, mismatched. She had to wear a suit and tie, and so we're obviously uncomfortable.
Right.
Anyway, so up to the restaurant we go, and people are just elegantly dressed in the city, and we go up to dinner, and this is going on. Well, my stomach had been off. Let's just put it that way a little bit that day, and it was kind of on the extreme side as far as maybe the encompassing smell that you might say. So we're at dinner, and a little bit of this gets kind of released, crop dusted, as your other caller said, and this very, very concerned and obviously disappointed look goes out from my father, mother, my brothers, hits me in the arm. It's funny, but that wasn't the best part. Back there in the day, you had to take an elevator up to the top of this restaurant.
Yeah, you can't do that on the outside elevator anymore, but I know what you're saying.
That's right. Yeah, so being a mischievous teenager, as we're leaving, my stomach's building up, and I thought, this plan developed in my head. And we're all in the elevator, we're going down, and I decide, well, these doors are going to open up in the lobby. It was a busy dining night. And I bet there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to have to get in this elevator. And being shenanigans, not hooliganism,
right.
I cropped up this SBD, I think you rather call it. What do you call it? Silent but deadly, right?
Yeah.
Thing out. And the doors, right as the doors are opening for us to step off, I'll never forget this. And the doors open up, and here's these nice men and women elegantly dressed in the lobby, and I step out. Now, I think we were just getting a whiff of things when we were kind of stepping out, the whole family, my father also, and the people pile into this thing, and I turn around as the doors are slowly closing, and you can just see it dawn upon all of them as the final door shut, and I started laughing.
How their countenances changed dramatically, huh?
Completely. It was like this. You could see the eyes like just expanding open of these people on the elevator as the door shut. And I don't know if you've ever laughed so hard where you think you can't breathe.
Right.
Well, I was in the lobby laughing hysterically, and of course, I just want to end the story by saying I remember very fondly my father, slapping me up on the back of the head in a gentle fatherly type of way, and that was it. And there's my famous little story that I wanted to share.
Well, was he saying attaboy, or was he saying you shouldn't have done that? What was he saying?
No, I think he was saying, how could you do that? And my dad was all about my mother. It's like, don't you ever do anything to embarrass your mother. And it was just the funniest thing. And, of course, I just kept laughing through the whole thing. Anyways, of course, as an adult nowadays, I would never do something like this. But I had to share the story. And thanks for
the older you get, sometimes you do it involuntarily. I mean, the chances of that happening are more, like what happened to me this week, which led to this whole first hour of wasted radio time. Anyhow.
Well, it's a fantastic subject matter, and I appreciate the other stories. Like you're saying, you get older, sometimes it just happens. Right. And I'm at that age now, but it brought back a great memory, so thank you.
All right,
for this
great. Hey,
awesome
we got to go.
topic.
Thank you, Chad. Hey, Mickey, quick in 30 seconds, or we'll go into the news a little bit. Go ahead, relate your story, Mickey, in Capitola.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick, Michael, because I can barely hear you. I'm at a
10
gas
seconds,
station.
Mickey.
Okay, I just turned on your show. Have you talked about the real meaning of fart?
No, what?
That it's putting on, to fart is to put on makeup?
Oh, yeah, F-A-R-D. Yeah, farding. That's good. Okay, thank you for letting us know. KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey, San Jose. Here's 11 a.m.
I'm Matt Piper. While President Trump did not hold a news conference at the G20 summit, Russia's Vladimir Putin was among the leaders who did. Putin shared his first impressions of Mr. Trump with reporters after their first meeting. CBS News White House correspondent Stephen Portnoy reports from Hamburg, Germany.
Vladimir Putin says he and the president got off to a good start.
TV Trump is very, very different from the real Trump.
Through an interpreter, Putin said he found the president quick to react to what he brought up in conversation. Asked if it's true that Mr. Trump accepted his denials of meddling in the U.S. election, Putin said he gave answers to Mr. Trump's repeated questions.
I think that he noted them and that he agreed. But you have to ask him how he really felt about it.
Stephen Portnoy, CBS News at the G20 summit in Germany.
2 U.S. Air Force bombers from Andersen Air Force Base in Guam have flown over the disputed South China Sea. It was a bilateral mission with South Korean and Japanese fighter jets. CBS News military consultant Jeff McCausland says the mission is in response to recent North Korea missile launches.
One is to show U.S. resolve. Second of all, of course, to reassure people, particularly in the region, the Koreans and the Japanese, and lacks, of course, exercise various operational capabilities, demonstrating the United States, because in this case, working with our Korean allies over the peninsula.
At least a dozen GOP senators have publicly opposed or criticized the new health care legislation. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell plans to produce a fresh bill in about a week. Bob Cusack is editor-in-chief of The Hill.
He can only lose 2 Republicans. And right now, there are about 10 Republicans who don't want to vote for this. It's unpopular. It's similar to the House bill. They're going back to the drawing board. They've got to pass it in July. I just don't know how they get there from here.
The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals says no to the state of Hawaii's latest attempt at challenging President Trump's travel ban. Correspondent Steve Futterman.
The state of Hawaii had wanted to expand groups with U.S. relatives allowed to enter during the 90-day travel ban. The Trump administration is currently allowing parents, children, spouses, and fiancés to enter. Hawaii had wanted to expand that to include grandparents, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews. The 9th Circuit Court of Appeals said it does not have the jurisdiction to act on the request. Steve Futterman, CBS News, Los Angeles.
It's summer and it's July, but for those of you in the West, boy, is it hot.
117 for today in Palm Springs. They had a record 122 yesterday. Los Angeles, 93 today. They tied a record yesterday. Las Vegas will see 112, and all the way up north here in Boise, 104, 99 in Billings.
That's meteorologist Ed Curran of WBBM TV. Wildfires fueled by hot, dry winds have burned almost 500,000 acres in 11 western states. This is CBS News.
I'm Scott Tannen, founder of Boll & Branch, where you can get the world's most comfortable sheets for less than half of what you'd pay in the store. Our sheets are made from 100% organic cotton and get softer over time. Even 3 U.S. presidents have Boll & Branch sheets. Try them for 30 nights. If you don't love them, send them back for a full refund. Go to bollandbranch.com today for $50 off your first set of sheets, plus free shipping with promo code SLEEP. Spelled B-O-L-L and branch.com. That's bollandbranch.com, promo code SLEEP.
I hate water softeners. I really hate softeners. I hate the thought of lugging salt and that it ruins septic systems. But I hate hard water that causes lime scale, which costs thousands in appliance damage and wasted energy.
Stop hating and start loving again with the HydroCare Smart Descaler from Wave Home Solutions. Prevent and eliminate lime scale the smart way. No maintenance, no salt, no plumbing required, and better than magnetic wraps. 1-year performance guaranteed. Go to IHateMySoftener.com. IHateMySoftener.com.
A kidney swap of a whole different magnitude. The story from CBS News correspondent Sam Litzinger.
You probably heard of a person donating a kidney. Well, how about a chain involving 4 people donating kidneys to 4 others during simultaneous surgeries? It happened over the course of 2 days at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. The chain includes 2 married couples, an aunt, a nephew, and someone who just wanted to help. Loretta Jenkins happily parted with one of her kidneys.
100% I would do it again, because you're truly saving someone's life. You're giving them longevity. And it's just an awesome experience.
The complicated exchange was made possible by the hospital's kidney transplantation program. Sam Litzinger, CBS News.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to AM 1080, FM 104.1, 107.9 San Jose, 95.7 Salinas FM, KSCO.com. It's 11:05, a beautiful Saturday morning, July 8, 2017. I'm Jason Struby. Let's take a quick look at the traffic. Collision 152 at Pole Line Road happened just about 15 minutes ago. Looks like they're assessing the damage. No further details right now. Keep an eye out, 152 at Pole Line. Also, 101 southbound at the 25 connector. About 10 minutes ago, a motorcycle went down there. They are out of the road. However, there may be injuries coming out of this. No further details yet. Also, a collision, Highway 1 at Trafton, happened about 10:42. No injuries there, according to CHB, thankfully. Traffic hazard reported 101 southbound at the 85 connector near Hollister Gilroy. This is some kind of metal object in the road. Definitely don't want to hit that. And also a collision reported 17-mile drive at Del Ciervo Road in Monterey County. No injuries there at 10:40. Highway 1 northbound to Santa Cruz. Looks like things are still lagging there at 41st, approaching the exit. We had an unfortunate fatality at about 3:30 this morning right there near the off-ramp. Car burned to the ground. And they are still dealing with repairs to the rail guard, and etc. So if you're in traffic northbound to Santa Cruz, that's what's going on. They're trying to wrap up that investigation. 17 southbound heavy past Los Gatos. Otherwise, your major roadways look good. We'll hit 81 or so here in Santa Cruz today. Hotter inland significantly, like 90 to 100 in those inland upper elevation areas. Overnight clear with the low near 56. Tomorrow like today, but cooler. Sunny in the afternoon with a high near 70 degrees in Santa Cruz. It's 11:07, time for hour 2 of the Saturday special with your host, Michael Zwerling. Take it away.
A special friend of mine who's been on with us quite a number of times over the years. I always enjoy our visits. He's going to be on for the rest of the program. But I want to start the second hour jingle, please. I mean, it just doesn't feel right without me. I do that.
Oh, hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back. KSCO has the inside track.
I think a lot of people would agree with me that these are extra stressful times that we are going through in our country and with ourselves. That's going to be the topic.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
And you might be able to imagine how stressful it was to start KSCO. The station was founded in 1947, and it was operated by two owners before me. But when I picked up the station in 1991 with help from my parents, I had no idea it would be as difficult as it was, and it was very, very, very stressful. I didn't know that where the money was going to come from to keep the place going, and so forth. And in the process, I became acquainted with Andy Anderson, who, with his wife Phyllis, became good personal friends of mine. I'm sure there are people listening who remember that Andy had a program called Facing Reality many years ago, and I want him to do that program or a similar program again. Someday maybe he will. But it was Andy who introduced me to one of the most special human beings that in the world, and who has become another good, close personal friend of mine. That would be Roy Masters. And Andy, and Roy is on with us, and we're going to talk about stress for the rest of the hour today, and how post-traumatic stress disorder, which is something that most people associate only with people who have been in combat in the military and so forth. But Roy believes that PTSD is suffered by many, if not most of us. maybe even more. And he has developed a great anecdote for that he wants to. But I wanted to bring Andy on first. And Andy, hey, welcome to the Saturday Special. Thanks for calling in.
Well,
I want you
Good morning.
take a minute or two to sort of give us your what happened. I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, Andy's still there. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah,
would you take a minute or two to tell us how you discovered Roy and how you have had a profound impact on my life because of the profound impact that Roy had on your life?
Well, it's really well said. Let's go back quite a ways. I'm 31 years of age. I'm broke. I'm not working. My rent is due. I'm divorced. Can't pay my child support. I was a mess. And I'd always held in my mind that, don't worry, you'll figure this out. And then this thought came to me, well, if you're so smart, why are you in so much trouble? And then it's funny how this truth comes to you. Then I realized, wait a minute, that's true, I'm a mess. And I tend to trust my own thinking, and my thinking keeps getting me into trouble. Then there has to be something in me that isn't me, that I listen to and I'm obedient to. And then I realized what I realized about original sin and where did this all come from. And I realized I needed help. I really needed help. And I cried for help. I cried to God for help. It wasn't but a few minutes later, I'm dialing this radio, and this man with an English accent was on the radio. And I hope you don't mind, but it's a radio station out of San Francisco, actually.
Great.
KEST,
KEST 1450, right.
1450, yes. And it was Roy. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was talking to me. And then he went off the air. I think he was on from noon to 1 o'clock, 1 to 2, something like that. It was right in that time of the day. And I'll tell you, I just panicked for the next day. Would he be on again tomorrow? And by golly, he was. And then I began to listen daily. And then he also was telling us that he has a meditation exercise, that if you practice this exercise, well, I set away for it. And which, by the way, in those days, it was on 2 big 33 third records. I still have them. Wow. I started meditating. I'll tell you, things changed. Now, I also think it's important to emphasize something, that when I cried for help, I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. I just realized profoundly that I needed help, because I thought I was so smart, then why was I in so much trouble? Well, anyways, I began to meditate. My whole life changed, and to this day, it's the most wonderful experience of my life. And then, as it's true, I introduced you to Roy, and I remember one time you called me. Are you listening to Roy? He's talking to me. And then I remember Dave Allen. Dave Allen used to call me pretty regularly. Are you listening to Roy? He's talking to me. And so there you are. Roy really has something to say. I believe he's one of the most important men in our country. And Roy's comments about truth and living and consciousness and meditation and hatred and anger are so profound. And when you begin to discover how to become conscious of your own thinking, that's where you get into trouble. You get lost in your thoughts. You get caught up in a hypnotic state. And then if you add anger to your imagination will destroy you if you let it have its way. So I think that probably is a pretty fair introduction. I meditate every day. My wife meditates every day. That's primary in our living and thinking, is that relationship with God. It's just, by God, there is a God. And when you align yourself with God's consciousness, if I may add this, Roy teaches a meditation of how to be in the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, you're in the presence of God. That's where God's consciousness is, in the moment. It's not in your imagination, because most people imaginations are constantly thinking about the future or the past, but they never get their consciousness in. I shouldn't say never, but you want to be in the present moment, and then you just let things unfold. And my wife commented one time, it's just so very, very true. My wife and I live on the spiritual welfare system. It's just, our wonderful life just unfolds. And God also attracts us to wonderful people, such as Roy and such as Michael Verlaine. And that's our life. That's my introductory comment.
And by the way, and Roy is the longest running radio talk show host in the world today. He's still on the air on our KOMY station in the evenings. I think it's from 9 to 11, but he's live, I think, a little before that. Anyhow, that's a nice introduction. Thank you, Andy. Stay with us if you want, or call in if you think. Well, I'm going to lock you in, but now I'm going to bring in Roy. And Roy, you know, the way I think you can get through to the most people is through by talking about stress, which is something that everybody I know seems to suffer from increasingly. And I'm fascinated by what you've discovered, and on the subject of stress. So you take over, please, and thank you for being with us today.
Oh, I was happy that you called me, and I did enjoy my friend. It's become my friend. I wish I had a moment just to speak to him before you let him go.
Oh, he's there. He's still there. He's still with us. So go say what you're going to say.
Well, I just tell him I love him. That's all I can say. I love what he says.
Well, he gets it. He loves what you say, and he gets it. And a lot of people don't get it, and a lot of people do get it, and I want more people to get it. And
this is what you need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, juveniles and crocodiles. I just want to put a little levity in this, because this is hard to actually believe to do it. What needs to happen is for you to have God take away your emotion, so you are emotionless. Like myself, I am emotionless. That doesn't mean to say I'm crazy. It doesn't mean to say I don't have a feeling for you, but it's not the kind of feeling that you have. Most people look for feeling to save them, especially when it comes to sex, because the best feeling comes from perverse sexual connections. And so, but everything on earth, everything you do, once you start to react to stress, it never will stop. And when somebody, the way it begins is usually with the family. It's nearly 100% of the family. And what is coming through the mother and the father, the mother and the failing father, I should put, is equivalent to Paradise Lost, except that man is born of woman, and therefore the relationship between God and the devil is reversed. It means that Adam, the man, has to have authority over the woman who gives in to the foolish ways that Eve herself has given to all the women that ever was born. So there's a spiritual aspect here, and I'm not sure if I can make the point coming to the Bible that maybe not everybody understands. But there was an original person, and there was an original ant. But there's something about this original human being that inherits something that went wrong a long time ago. But if you were a created man like Adam was, and you make that mistake, there's no way back. And you put that aside for a minute, because there is a way back for him when kingdom comes, so to speak. But what has happened is that God says to Adam, he says, because you have done this thing, so shall you be joined in flesh and blood to the woman. And that's it. So what you're looking at is man born of woman instead of woman born of man. Remember, woman was born of man, meaning that he was a person first and a piece of him made the woman. And that was the relationship with woman, man, God, or children, woman, man, God. But that got upset. And in the Garden of Eden, I must say this is important. This is very invaluable. This is not a toy story. In the Garden of Eden, they had no clothes, and they had no embarrassment, no shame. But when they were thrown out of the garden, they became involved with what Eve was able to do to bring Adam away from his father in heaven. And therefore, the woman has the power over the men. And to this day, man born of woman looks to the woman for love. And every time he looks to the woman for love who hasn't got it, every time a man looks for love, he is drawing what needs to be resolved in every woman Eve. Every woman is Eve looking for a man to love the hell out of her. Instead, he gets them. I'm trying to. There's a few words missing here, but he needs to love the hell out of her rather than grasp the hell in her. Every man looks to a woman for his sense of worthless worth. That means everybody on earth that came into it by generations, you will see that every man born of woman comes into the culture, and if it's a Borneo culture, cannibals, even the child who is born from a cannibal has an intuition, but it doesn't have much chance of existing, except by being a cannibal. But fast forward, if in America you do have the freedom to understand this, but what I'm speaking about is never understood by hardly anybody. In other words, can you see, ladies and gentlemen, that when a man looks to a woman because he's born of woman, in the beginning, woman was born of man, and there was a proper order. But now we're born in a disorder. And so it comes, and so every child that comes into the world, every child that comes into the world has intuition. But because the failing of the father, the one that loves the woman, meaning looks for love from the woman like she was God, it's upside down because you don't know what's coming through her. That's what's bringing all the hell and misery and suffering in the world is upside down love. You can't get love.
Let's see if I'm sensing that this might be a little too esoteric. I want to bring this down to the level that we can all relate to, and I'm talking about stress. Okay. Now,
but the thing is, when you come into the world comes into you, and that's what stress is. So when you come into the world comes into you. The nature, the culture gets inside you, and your parents represent that. The woman in his way and the man in his way. What is necessary is for us to realize that we do not know how to love each other, because we've got 80% of divorce rates, and that can't stand if this country is to survive. We need to understand this. You say it's a little difficult to understand, but it's also a truth about how we, as a human race, become dehumanized. We dehumanize each other from the day they're born, with very little exception. And so the problem of the problem of the relationship between man and woman is reversed. It should be, but the trouble is, man born of woman, it has no virtue, has no authority. It has no real authority except he's angry. He has no real authority except he's a weasel and looking for love. That's all he wants is pleasure. He wants pleasure, but you're going to get pleasure from everything. But pleasure basically starts with wrong sex, the lack of virtue, the lack of waiting to do the right thing, so you don't jump into bed just for the pleasure of it, but because that's not love.
Which is what most people do, right?
That's right. And we're going to be destroyed by that. And we all begin to, and we want more. The more sex we get, the more we want. The more the man forces the woman with anger, or he's an appeaser. Oh dear, I'll get you a nice car if you give me lots of sex. It's insane. It's upside down. It's giving power to the woman, and to the devil. In a manner of speaking, there are two forces. There's a realm where the woman is. There's a realm where the man is. And the man is essential for the man to finish what Adam failed to do. Love the hell out of her. What does that mean? Now we're coming to a point. To love the hell out of someone, you have to be redeemed. But the difference between Adam and the man that's born of woman is that he comes into the world innocent, but loses that innocence by the presence of the mother, because of failing of the father. The father will always fail until he finds the truth that sets him free. And that truth that sets you free is, be still and know, and God will take your emotions away. And when your emotions are animal, and emotions are resentful or annoyed, aggravated. And emotions have to do with feelings. And anybody who has emotion can be imprinted, emotionally imprinted in that person, so that the person becomes the subject of the person that has imprinted him. So if I upset you, let me put it this way. I know how to upset a person and make him my slave. But I can also understand that, because I understand that there is a way for salvation. And that's what my business is, to get people to see that for a human being, stress and emotion and run or fight causes conflict called anxiety. And anxiety represents the distance from which you are fallen from your father within inside you, and the journey into the women, and from them they rise up in anger and frustration, and they either give you the sex and make you worse and enjoy the worse, enjoy the misery that she creates, or she is looking for a man that loves the hell out of her. And I'm a man that can love the hell out of a woman. My voice says, you need a man. But there aren't many men that understand this. Many men must understand this, because unless he finds God, he cannot help Eve. Eve will hate being forced to give him her love that is born of hate and guilt. A woman can feel guilty for not giving her husband the sex and the pleasure he needs to support his worthless worth. And I'm speaking to you in spiritual ways, but the spiritual thing is actually comes into our real life. And the only way that we can survive is to have God be still and know I am God. That's what he's saying. Be still. I'll take away your animal emotion. I'll give you a different kind of emotion or a different kind of force that you cannot feel as emotion. In other words, you're connected to me in a Jesus sense of worth. When you are redeemed, the redeeming factor takes away animal emotion. As long as you have the animal emotion, you will have a conflict with your human, always. And the more you try to get rid of the anger, the worse you get. The more you try to get rid of the thoughts to burn you, the worse you get. The more you try to overcome the problems you have, the worse they get. And each one, depending on what you drink, smoke.
How do people conquer stress? How do people conquer emotion?
By wanting to know the purpose of life, and we have to suffer. All of us have to suffer. But the beautiful thing about what I'm trying to say, in just a few words, the beautiful thing is that there's something about being born of a woman different from the story of Paradise Lost. We come into the world with intuition. But the trouble with this is because your parents belong to the culture, then the culture gets into the woman, into the child, and so there's two ways that a woman loves a child: too much, spoils him rotten, or is angry because he doesn't do as he's told, is rebellious, because a child is rebellious to its mother. It needs a father, but the father needs a spiritual father, the one that Adam lost. You have to find the spiritual father that Adam lost, but you have the ability to receive him by the intuitiveness you still have. To realize there's something wrong with my life. And
Roy, a listener on Andres has a question for you that he emailed. If we are to be emotionally independent, what is an honest response to the wife who says, "I love you"?
Well, she that's not a bad thing, because she thinks that she will think improperly so, not properly so, that she loves when she gives sex. That's not necessarily true. It's actually a lie. And it's a need. She has a need for a man to love the hell out of her, but what she gets is a man that loves the hell in her.
Right, but I'm sure he wants an answer to his question. What is an honest response to the wife who says, "I love you"?
Nothing. In other words, if I love you, you don't have to. You don't have to play with words. I love the women listening to this program, but I don't feel anything. My purpose is to my wife, no matter how ornery she gets, I am not responding to it. And sooner or later, she's going to come around, or if she doesn't, she chooses. Remember, you got a choice. You have a choice for redemption. But the point is, Roy Masters represents what I'm talking about. And it's taken many years for my wife to get what I'm talking about. God gave me a very difficult one. I've been 64 years, and she's just beginning to see it. Just beginning. But I never would leave her. And that's what love is. I don't have to say, "I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you." I'm there. I'm there always for her, waiting to wake up. So, see, most men would run away from my wife, or their wife that doesn't give them the sex. The only reason they will stay with their wife is they get lots of sex. But the trouble is, looking for sex as a form of love and relief from anxiety only increases the anxiety and causes the woman to become a bigger bitch, excuse the expression, without her not from herself, but from the stupidness of a man to think that the hunger that he feels is backwards. It's if you know what I mean by backwards.
Yes, ass
See,
backwards.
Yes, backwards.
Okay. Do you want to take a call or two or not?
I'll take a lot.
You will? Okay.
Every
We still have Andy on, but I put Andy on hold because his phone was very noisy. I don't know if it was his head or whatever. And we have Mike in Santa Cruz, but let's put Andy back on right now. Andy, do you have anything to add to that, or do you have a question for Roy or anything at this point? Or
Well,
you
not
want to
so
just
much
listen?
a question. I actually would love to respond in keeping with what
Hi,
Roy
Andy.
said. However, why don't I drop off so you can take callers?
Oh, okay.
That'll
All right.
open up a line because you don't have that many lines in there, and it'll.
But we don't have that many callers. There's only one. There's only one.
I'll tell you what. Let me respond just briefly, and then I will drop off. Roy wrote a book many years ago, How to Control Negative Emotions. Profound, is must reading for everyone, especially the chapters of implanted identity and the real you and the not you, sort of alluding to what I commented on earlier. But Roy said something many, many years ago that always stayed with me. Our universe, there has to be order. In our universe that we live in, all the planets and all this stuff, there has to be order. If any one of the planets and the moons and all these things get out of sync, there would be a great calamity. Well, that same principle applies to the human experience. We also have a soul, and our behavior and how we relate to men and women and children and to culture and all these types of things.
Yeah, it is good.
And it starts out with old-fashioned morality and understanding, behaving, and doing all the right things. And when people begin to lose that, and by the way, a measurement of a nation's degeneracy is their excessiveness into sex. That's just, and we're seeing that in our country with political views. Early on, when Johnson did the Great Society or whatever that's called, and told certain communities they didn't have to get married to have children, and then you have all these youngsters that are born without fathers, and we've been in a decline for quite some time, and now we're really beginning to see the evidence of all that, especially as the absence of fatherhood. The problems of this world today are a result of the absence of fatherhood. There's plenty of motherhood, but fatherhood rarely exists, and that's again taking even currently today. And another thing that Roy commented on, and this, by the way, is in one of his opening introductory comments in his meditation, which I encourage everybody to get. But he says right in there, right in the beginning, you're either sustained from within yourself or you're sustained by the world. Now, what happens, of course, when we first come into the world, if I could put it this way, I hope you don't mind it, kind of elementary, but our little children, when they come into the world, sort of have a soul that nobody's done any writing on it, like a blackboard. Forgive the poor analogy, but
yeah.
Then culture begins to talk to us. Teachers at school, our friends at school, our parents, all the cultural types of things begin to have a profound effect on us that develops our personalities and the way we deal and handle the world. And there's just not a lot of defense, except that when we're very, very young, people hurt our feelings, whatever, we have an ego defense called anger. It's in a sense satisfies our need to do back what somebody has just done to us. Of course, that eventually will trap you. It'll come back to really get you down. And everything that Roy's talking about is that capacity to be secure within yourself and not need others to make you feel whole. And it doesn't mean we don't relate to one another. I believe what Roy is also commenting on here when the caller said, what does it mean? My wife says, I love you. It's a nice, sincere. I don't tell my wife I love her. I don't need to. It's so evident. It's so evident. And I mean, so once in a while, if it's appropriate or something like that. But she doesn't need to hear from me that I love her 10, 12, 14 times a day. She has no interest in that. But getting back to being secure within yourself. And Roy, if I may, again, scripturally, getting back to, there's a part of the Bible where it says, judge not, lest we be judged. And again, I learned this from Roy. And Roy, you could probably pick this up and do it even better than I can, but there are two words that have to do with life. Because let me get back to judgment. When you're angry at someone, when you hate someone, when you resent someone, you're judging them. God says, I'll be the judge. You don't have to like someone. They may wrong you, but if you hate them for being wrong, the same wrong is now in you as in them. And the highest example of this, when they killed Jesus, what did he say? Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Do you realize if Jesus said, "You SOBs, how dare you do this to me? How dare you?" They would just you would never would have heard of him again, ever. And to this day, that's our journey, is to get beyond anger and hatred and resentment. And the world provides us that environment. There's a place for the nuttiness in the world to tempt us to practice patience. And then with Roy's meditation, you learn to become objective to your own thinking. And then when you start getting annoyed or angry or something, you're a witness to it. You don't just let it unfold, because that's stress. That's stress. And then what happens is you fall into your imagination. And there's a spirit down there. You go far enough down in your imagination, you'll start hearing things you don't want to hear. Your imagination will start making you do things you don't want to do. And everything Roy is alluding to here is the fact to become conscious, living in the moment, but in particular to be conscious of your own thought. And when you step out of line, if you're meditating and you have the right sincerity, boy, you'll catch it. And you realize. This happened just yesterday, I think it was. I made a traffic error, and there was somebody cut in front of me. I forget what it was, but it turned out I was wrong. But I sure wanted to tell that other driver off, and I did. And then, of course, I had to start laughing at myself for being so silly. The truth was I was the one who was at fault. So that's what I'm getting at. And then with regards to the world, I hope you don't mind me going on.
I like it. Go ahead.
I like it, too.
Yeah.
The world's just getting nuttier by the day. And it's very troubling. And I'm going to make a political comment. Again, I'm just going to speak freely here. Fortunately, we no longer have the prior president. I think when Mr. Obama was president, a terrible, terrible pall was cast over the United States.
Correct.
And that created stress, too. We get up in the morning and we know we have no leadership in the White House. We know we're going in the wrong direction. And I must say, the country that I grew up in isn't the country I'm living in today. Now, hopefully we have a real change taking place. We finally got a president. But going back to this whole issue of the world, you cannot let the outside get on the inside. We can see terrible things taking place, and often we feel a sense of impotency in that, what can I do anything about that? Well, what happens commonly with people is they'll hate what's taking place. That's the wrong response. In other words, people feel like, well, at least I did something, and because I really don't know what to do, so they get angry at a circumstance. All that does is put hatred in you. It accomplishes nothing, and what's hard for people is to stand back and be objective and just see these things taking place. If you feel like you get emotional, you get angry and hostile, the world is getting under your skin.
Uh-huh.
That's your clue. That's your clue that you're not handling this situation correctly.
But you never will if you're not careful.
I'm sorry. Say it again, Roy.
Well, you've led me to a very special spot, which I started foolishly earlier on. In other words, a monkey, it needs stress to fight or run. To fight or run or be eaten or do the eating. That is emotion, and that when that emotion gets into a human, he is in conflict with his human. He's an animal in conflict with his human. And that's the reason for anxiety, because the more angry he is, the more like a monkey is. But the monkey doesn't know anything because it doesn't have intuition. It doesn't have the future of everlasting life like we do. And so to close it, to make just, if you want me to talk about it more, I will, but to really make the point, emotion does not belong to the human race. You can't find emotion in Jesus. You cannot upset him, because only if he had emotion can you do anything to him. Only if you're worldly can you do anything to them. And so when you come into the world, and you come into the world where your parents fighting each other, and there's destruction and anxiety and cruelty and injustice, the child sees that so clearly, but he doesn't know how to fight. He doesn't know how to stand up to his parents. If he stands up to his parents, he gets knocked down. And if the mother is compassionate in a wrong way, she will love him in a wrong way that will spoil him and make him hate his father. And what we need, what Jesus experienced, why he had authority, because he gave up ego. He gave up feelings. And the feelings go away. I have no feelings. And when I have no feelings, I have found the truth that has set me free. Because the truth is that the failing of Adam, the failing, is of the world. He falls into he makes an excuse. How many people make excuses? Exactly like him. Excuse is the fact that you've been acted through. And when you've been acted through, you're lost, because it won't let go. And everything gets worse. You rebel, you fall, you go backwards and forwards. You rebel, you conform. You're an appeaser. You're a bully. You go from one thing to another. You will be a bully one moment and an appeaser the next to somebody bigger than yourself. And what I'm saying is, we have fallen to the animal state, the monkey, the dog, the cat. It doesn't matter. They have emotions, and that is the world. But human beings cannot be in the world and of it. We have to be in the world and not be of it. And that means your relationship now with God, he takes away emotion and gives you something called the light. In other words, if you close your eyes, you can see your eyelids lighting up with little pixels. You close your eyes. Now, to be able to see that without eyes, remember, you're looking at it, but your eyes are closed. You're looking at inside you. And that's the first, what I discovered, the simplicity of it. There it is. One thing. And then there's another thing which I won't go into because I'll get away from my problem. I say that the biggest lie in all the world is that human beings, emotion makes us human beings, when it does just the opposite. We have to overcome the lie. And many people are fond of their emotions because there's many ways of enjoying emotion: drugs, alcohol, sex, bullying, and you can name thousands of things that give music, addiction to music. It becomes an addiction. And so every time you just imagine this, just a little imagination. You have a drug addict and a girlfriend drug addict. And what do they want? What do they want? Do they look up to God? Do they seek the purpose for life? No. They have an ego in them that's been put in them. And they came into the world, and the world came into them. And so what they look for? They look for a person who has come from the jungles of South America and rises to the occasion of your need to feel worthless worth. But they don't think of it as a worthless worth. They think it gives them the right to be more hungry and more loving of the dope pusher. You see, that's the system of things. And it's the same with food. You
It's
can see
reversed.
the food. It's the same thing. It's everything is seductive. The whole world is seductive. That doesn't mean to say you can't have a nice steak and a glass of wine. But you've got to learn. You've got to discover redemption. A reverse of what Adam did. A reverse salvation. And Jesus came into the world and he says, why call me good? There is no good but God. So what is he is expressing an energy field that that when you have it, you have no energy field. You can't feel the energy, but there's energy there that you cannot understand. You don't want to play with it, but when you have no emotion, God is in charge, and he gives you a kind of energy that you can't be proud of. In other words, it is humbling. It's a humbling factor. And so when a person tries to upset you, the reason why they can overcome you is because you have an emotion, and you're an animal. And so the person who wants to control you will first try to upset you with something rude. And if you get upset, they own you. And something of them gets inside you, and you become a slave of people like that everywhere
If
you
you
go.
know how to react properly, which is no reaction, right?
That's correct. No reaction.
Then you
away.
will. Then I always laugh at the way you once described how if you behave correctly, the person who's trying to get on top of you, to have power over you, will run around like a dog with a burr in his head,
right.
shaking his head, crazily to get the burr out of his ear. We only have about less than 8 minutes remaining, and Mike and Santa Cruz.
Can I use that 1 minute?
Sure. Well, yeah, but okay. So no phone call. It's not 1 minute. It's 8 minutes or 7 minutes.
All right, I'll be 1 minute.
And there is a caller who wants to call, who has something with respect, whatever that means. So,
Well,
go ahead.
Just give me one of those minutes.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. God has a different energy for a human. That's it. And it humanizes you. And when you be still and experience that, emotion goes away. But something more beautiful is called the light. And you have no emotions, and you have a relationship with God forever, and you don't have to make decisions because everything bad happens for good. And so you learn how to deal with cruelty. But the cruel one tries to upset you. But the more he tries to upset you, the more he gets upset trying. And you may not have to do anything. That's a very
He might just self-destruct.
He might self-destruct, correct. That's all I want to say.
All right. Let's see. Here's Mike in Santa Cruz who's been waiting. Go ahead, Mike. You're on with Roy, and Andy's on also.
Okay, I'll be concise. I regret we don't have more time. But what I wanted to touch on was, I believe Roy, as an older brother in the generation, has important input into what's ailing us here in in our country and in our marriages. Part of the difficulty is when we listen to some of his messages, some of the women feel that he's coming from a place of not putting the mind of Christ on as far as the Adam and Eve equation and excusing Adam's silence. I believe that what Roy's addressing is he's addressing the issue of man and woman on their soul level, or what he calls animal nature, and not getting quickened to the point of engaging their spirits restored to the Father. So my question is, as I think that Roy's message is important. I think that because of the bias of where we're at in our culture and in the generation, and this fear and suspicion between men and women, the power struggle, that there's something that he could do to clarify that he's not favoring Adam's side, but merely trying to convey the game that we're playing, the power struggle that we're having at the soul level with man and woman in their fallen pattern, inherited from the fall of Adam and Eve. I hope that there's something in what I've said that will also encourage Roy to clarify that he's not favoring Adam's position, and some of the reason why that's suspect is when he talks about his wife, some of the sisters feel like he's taken a superior position and saying his wife hasn't come as far along as he has. But even so, look how patient.
Can I stop you right there for a second to answer your question? Okay. A woman, I could tell you right now, there's thousands of women right now listening, and some of them hate. That's their right. But many of them who have a soul recognize where I'm coming from. They would love to have a husband with the authority such as I have. They would love that. But men born of women are missing a true authority and putting their love, in other words, looking for love from her. Only a man who is redeemed and no longer subject to a woman, but by relationship with his God, does not need the love of the woman. He will give love to her and say, put down the fruit, Eve, in a manner of speaking. That the man that has a spirit like Jesus, the quality of it, the very presence of it, is magical. She will suddenly see what an ordinary man could not see, neither could he do. He will look for another woman because this one can't accept the man that wants to love the hell in her. I'm the person that will help every man to become a real man and authority exactly like Jesus. So your wife will accept the love coming through you, but not from you. Love is coming through me, but not from me. It's an energy field. I cannot feel it, but it causes me to say things I never could read in a book. And when I read in a book, I can understand exactly what it is, especially the Bible. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. Actually, my wife has something that she wanted to say to you, too, in addition, and I appreciate your response, Roy.
Thank you.
Hi, Roy. Yeah. I was wondering, it seems to me like the whole question of authority, like you were saying, women desire to have their man, their husband, have a rightful authority in
yes,
the home.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a derived authority. It's a derived, as they're submitted to God, then they're going to have that proper concept of authority, a loving authority in their marriages and in their home. If they're not submitted to that, then it's going to be a perverted authority. And then I was curious, like, what do you think about the whole, like Jesus overturned the temple? Overturned the tables in the temple. So that was a display of emotion.
No, it
right?
wasn't.
No,
it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I can smack you in the head and knock your head off and not have an emotion.
Smack me in the head and knock my...
I don't mean to be, but it's necessary to be strong, but not wrong strong, right strong. There's a right strong, and a child can know the difference between a right strong, which scares him, and a good strong. They go to bed, son. Thank you. Be very firm, and they love that.
Yeah,
they will
we have less than a minute remaining in the program. Wow, I wish we could go on longer, but we can't. Roy, I want to thank you. I want to thank all the callers.
Michael, any chance for me to take up 30 seconds or so?
Sure, go ahead. We'll break into the news. It's all propaganda anyhow.
I want to comment. Kind of go back to stress, and a little clue to everyone listening who would find this interesting. That in order, if you want to, let me get started here. When you wrong somebody by getting angry or hate them or something like that, you will feel a conflict. And that's a clue. That's God tapping you on the shoulder that, look, Skippy, you're a little out of line here. The judgment's pretty harsh. Now, what happens is people don't pay any attention to that. So then what happens over a short period of time, people start experiencing guilt because they combine that experience with another experience, another experience. Next thing you know, you're dealing with lots of guilt. Now you end up with, if you don't handle the first response correctly, now you're dealing with guilt, and you don't handle that properly. And what I'm getting at here is, so you drink, you take drugs. If you don't handle these things properly, then that turns into anxiety and depression. And if you're on drugs for any of those kinds of things, it's because you're very angry inside, because you haven't handled things properly. I'll give you an example. Currently in Las Vegas, they've just passed a law that we can now have recreational marijuana. And believe me, what a nightmare this is creating, and what's going on in Denver is an absolute nightmare. But what they're doing is they're allowing people to take more drugs, more readily available. They first claimed it to be a medical marijuana thing, and now they want to just, you can come over and have all you want. They have clubs. They're even advertising, you want to get rich, get into the cannabis business. This is Las Vegas. Anyway, the little clue was, if you get angry and judge someone and you've got conflict, pay attention to that conflict and take a look at yourself. If you don't do that, then that's going to turn into guilt. That's just another degree of conscience trying to say, take a look at yourself. Never mind what they said to you or what they did to you. That'll then, if you don't handle that properly, turns into anxiety, and then it gets worse, and then you're on the pharmaceuticals. Everything Roy is trying to teach people with that wonderful meditation is how to become conscious of your thinking so that you can catch these things right in the moment. If you wrong somebody, just like me in traffic yesterday, I at first wanted to find fault with that, but I wasn't one of the fault, and I had to laugh at myself, and of course it was over. There was no more at issue, didn't rehearse it anymore, that kind of a thing. So please understand that's the type of thing that is so powerful with Roy, Roy's been teaching us for decades, and it really works.
Andre has a follow-up question here in the email. Is there such a thing as righteous emotions? Jesus had a couple moments of apparent emotion when he angrily and violently evicted the money traders from the temple.
No, you added a word, and you said you assumed he was angry. I could do the same thing without any emotion. It needs to be done, that's all. You've got to get rid of that emotion. You mustn't be driven by emotion, in other words, you become an animal.
At this and this moment of doubt in God while crucified, Father, why have you forsaken me? I think, yeah. Was this Jesus failing or justified?
Are you speaking to me?
Yeah, Andre is asking that question.
What was it again? Then I'm sorry.
Was this Jesus failing or justified?
No. Can I tell you this? I have fought a whole gang and its leader without any emotion. And it's the lack of emotion that terrifies them. And if I want to whack him one, if necessary, I see it ahead of time. In other words, I see it moving in his head, and I would knock that person out. I really would, if it was necessary. But the thing is, the calmness and the intimidation which precedes bullying is not there in me, and they don't know what to do. And I've taken a whole gang, and they ran away. A whole gang.
Okay, all right. I don't know what that interference is, but it's the end of the program. Anyhow, we'll join the end of the news. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, callers. And we'll see you next week. Go ahead and...
That's all, folks.
KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey, San Jose. Here's the end of CBS News.
He actually did it for me.
In the United States and Canada have signed a Reclamation of Independence Treaty of Cooperation to oppose the recent U.S. Department of the Interior's removal of the grizzly bear from protection under the Endangered Species Act. Native tribes consider the bear to be a sacred animal.
Grizzly bears that are being open to hunting and sport, they're going to annihilate and decimate to the extent that it'll put you to the brink of
of extinction.
The Chief of Canada's Bakani Nation, Stan Greer.
It's our commitment to undertake, intervene, and advocate for their protection and long-term sustainability.
Stephen Kaufman, CBS News.
It was beeping behind a wall for 14 years until this week. A heating contractor in Ross, Pennsylvania heard the story about an alarm clock that